She completed a Bachelor of Arts in Speech Communication degree from the University of the Philippines and an international master's in dance knowledge, practice, and heritage under the Choreomundus program, an Erasmus Mundus consortium between four universities in Europe. Wow. Her extensive experience in different fields has caused her to advocate for socio-cultural awareness, conservation education, and corporate responsibility. So she is very passionate about contributing to the uptake of cultural engagement and arts incorporation in various fields using strategic communications, research, and creative tools such as dance, drama, music, literature, and visual art. She collaborates on various projects with other like minded individuals from around the world and is constantly on the search for new and exciting opportunities. Her projects have taken her from her home country, which is the Philippines, to Bahrain, India, Tanzania, Hungary, Sierra Leone, France, UK, Morocco, and UAE. Now, how did I met her? So, of course, she's a World Pulse member since November 2019, and she's been writing her stories. And if you want to know more about the richness of the Mindanao culture, she's the right person to ask. Why? We'll ask her later. All right, so let's welcome Mom Dan or Danielle Celine Ramonal. Welcome. Okay, let me. Hello, hello. Hi. You're on mute. Let me.
Okay,
Yes.
yeah, there. Sorry
Hi.
about that.
Okay.
Hi,
How are you there?
I'm good. It's not as cold as before,
Oh,
although they said that it's going to be snowing soon. But
oh
so
wow.
far, it's snowing again because it was snowing a few days ago. It just like it stopped, and then now it's back to just being cold. So
Mhm.
it's good. It's good so far
Okay.
and
So,
healthy,
wow. Of course, that's very important. I'd like to
yes,
acknowledge
especially now.
Rojin. She is in the Zoom. Welcome, Rojin. Hi, Rojin.
Hi, Rogine.
Hi. And also, I'd like to say hi to those who are watching with us via Facebook Live. Sir Michael Dumlao. Hi, sir. And who else? Okay, I cannot see in in my cell phone, but I hope that I believe that they are watching. So good day, good afternoon, good evening, especially in the Philippines. And we're excited, Ma'am. The mic is yours.
Okay. Okay, so my full name is Danielle Celine Ramonal, but you can call me Den.
Okay.
My friends and family call me Den. I am okay. It's tricky every time someone asks me, okay, then what is your title? Because I don't really stick to one title. I like to say that I wear many hats, which can be both good and bad depending on how people perceive it. But I like to be positive about it because then it makes me more flexible because I'm doing a lot of things. Um, but in a gist, I am a dance anthropologist, and I'm also a researcher, a writer, and an artist, uh, performing arts. And now I'm trying to experiment taking performing arts dance into the visual arts arena, which I shared in World Pulse, the website,
Yeah.
and my
World.
focus was always about education about the Mindanao culture, specifically our ICH, intangible cultural heritage, the dances, the rituals, the cultural practices that we have. So I wanted those to be shared in a different setting other than just performing them on stage. So I'm experimenting on that now. And with COVID, everything is very limited, as what Mayan and I were talking about a while back, that the arts and culture industry has been hugely affected by the pandemic. And hopefully, soon it will ease up and then maybe go back to normal. However, I do understand that it's important that we have these restrictions because it's also for us. So yeah. So that's in a gist me. So I'm in Serbia. I'm married. What else? What else do you want to know? You can ask me.
Oh yeah, you have kids.
Not yet, but I would love to have
Kids.
two or three
Oh
or more.
wow,
I don't know. Later on. Yeah.
that's great. So for those who are watching us right now via Facebook Live, we just like you to know that um, this technology is actually giving us the opportunity to meet different people around the world. It's not only um, in our region or in our country, but we can actually travel. Even if physically we don't go there, but we can travel and meet different people around the world. It's amazing the how technology evolved during this pandemic, and it actually
Yes, yes.
connect us more, all the more.
Mhm. It has become a very useful. It has always been a useful tool progressively,
Mhm.
but during the pandemic, it we sort of became reliant on technology, and it's I don't for me it I don't know if I should be excited or scared about it. You know, there are different sides of the coin to consider, but yes, it has been very helpful.
Okay. I'm excited about the book that you are going to share us, your journey
Ah, yes.
about
Uh-huh.
how you have created um, and sharing your passion about this book and
Uh-huh.
where it come from or who is your inspiration. So
Mhm.
we'd love to hear it.
Okay. Yeah. I'm excited to share it also. So, can you see it? Can you give
Yes,
me a Okay, good.
we can see
All
it.
right, so today I will be doing a short presentation entitled The Children's Book Project, a new author's journey to writing and illustrating picture books. So I'm specifically focusing on writing and illustrating, which is the creative process for the material creation. So, and this is with a focus on the creation of my debut book. Ta-da! Harriet Pat and her hat. Okay, so I wanted to show you this. So my book project started roughly 10 years ago, but technically it took about 9 years to finish only. So 9 years. So my goal for today is to share my writing and illustrating journey and to make it as concise as possible so that you don't have to go through 9 years of dilly-dallying like I did. Okay, so let's start. So everything starts with a big idea. So imagine this. You have a garden or you want a garden, but before you can have a garden, you actually need a seed. So you can plant the seed and the seed becomes a flower or plant. And then you will ultimately have something. Then it will grow into the garden that you want. So writing, the beginning of writing is just like that. So like any endeavor, it starts with the story and the big idea behind it. So the idea is the skeletal structure in which your book is framed in, and this is the beginning of everything. So without it, there's just no movement from there. So like the comparison, like the point of reference that I mentioned a while back, the idea is like the seed that holds all the concepts that you want to share, which you plan to introduce to your readers. And in the case of my book, I had specific people in mind. So the lesson that I actually wanted to share was derived from the stories of these people, and I wanted their stories to be heard. My character Harriet Pat, which you can see on the screen, was inspired by real people who selflessly helped others but have forgotten about themselves. So for others, these real life Harriet Pats were heroes, but I didn't just want to limit the coverage about these heroes. I wanted to share their stories. And by doing so, I wanted readers to know the value behind knowing such stories and inspire them to realize that anyone can be a hero. And they can do so by harnessing their own uniqueness, thereby also injecting the topic of diversity and independence. Because the best feature of children's literature is that you get to play and convert big and heavy topics using the lens of a child, and then they become more relatable. So your readers become more receptive to what you are trying to relate, to all the messages that is being relayed in the story. And the reason why I wanted to dive into these kinds of topics for such young readers, because some people would comment that, oh, you're tackling too much, too big of a topic. But I think that children are more perceptive than what we give them credit for, should be introduced to these kinds of topics early on. But this is just my take on the matter, and other people might have a different opinion on it. So once your idea is set, you can then move to structuring the narrative or start making or working on the story. And here are some points that I considered when I was writing Harriet Pat and Her Hat. So my advice is to take these points in consideration at the onset, as it helps mold your story and align everything within your focus at the earliest stage possible, which I did not immediately do because I was clueless. Honestly, I didn't know where to go and I was just groping around. So I was moving from one element to another and then going back. So basically wasting time. And maybe that is the reason why it took me 9 years to finish the whole creation. But the first element to consider in knowing, in writing your story is knowing your target reading age. How you will tell your story is dependent on who you are writing it for. So you have to ask yourself, what age range are you considering? So if you're considering of writing a picture book, do you already have an age range in mind? Knowing the age category can help you structure the other elements of your book, which you can see here in this slide. And like the length of your story, as you can see, vocabulary, point of view, the words that you will use, the manner that you want the story to be narrated, the characters and the setting. So for example, if you want to, let's say, write a story for 4 to 7 year old children, then you have to pay attention to the preferences and limitations of this age range. To make your book appealing to them, 4 to 7 year old children, then you need to limit, let's say, the number of words to young readers, 300 to 400 words, or maybe you can extend it to 500. Or you might also need to choose words that 4 to 7 year olds are familiar with. Use vibrant and saturated illustrations and colors because they are attracted to these. Create characters that are interesting to them and use text fonts that that they can actually identify. Now, I want to add something about the text fonts because one of the things that I really paid attention to with the layout of my book was I wanted to specifically use Comic Sans for my text fonts. And in the beginning, there were some remarks about my choice of font by digital and graphic artists. And I understand why they would react that way because most of them would be catering to an adult audience. But for me, since my book was for children, I wanted to make sure that the letters that they see on the book are the letters that they know in school. Because I remembered when I was teaching young learners, for example, as you can see here, letter A, that's not how we were taught in the beginning. That's not the kind of A that they know. So I wanted to use a font in which shows all the letters that a young learner actually can identify. So that's why, so I have to justify that choice in terms of font. But take note though that setting a target reading age is for me only, merely a guide, or it can be an important suggestion. You have an option to follow the preferences and limitations of your target category, but you are not restricted within that range. So in my case, I initially started with the age range of 5 to 9, but expanded it because I also thought about other reading scenarios. So it's not all the time that the child is reading alone, or but well, most often the child is being read to by an adult reader or is reading with an older reader. So I did not want to alienate these older readers while they were reading my book as well. So I also included them as my target. So from 5 to 9, it's sort of extended. And then, and when I think about reading scenarios, I think about moms reading to their infants, aunties reading to their niece or nephew, siblings reading together, um, or grandma reading to grandchildren, and maybe also teachers conducting reading out loud sessions in school. So those are other reading scenarios that actually can involve a picture book. Harriet Pat and Her Hat is generally designed for children, but it is also made relatable to adult readers. I was not merely reaching out to children, but to older readers. And I wanted these older readers to be able to reflect on the story. After all, the book took inspiration from experiences of older individuals. So, what I'm trying to say is it's good to have a focus, as it gives your story that much needed structure. But I think any creative person would suggest that you also try playing and expanding the borders of your category and exploring its possibilities, because you never really know unless you experiment and take the risk. So this is what I did with my first book, but remember that I am only speaking for myself and my experience. Other authors might have a different experience. So going through the points, again, the ones that you can see here in the slide, once you have your target reading age in mind, it will be easier to go to the next elements that you see. So the next element is the length of your story. And it's about the number of words that you will use, as well as the total number of illustrations that you will include in your book. So the older the readers, the longer the story. Important note, attention span. And then vocabulary points to the kind of words that you will use. Like what I said, you can play with the elements, as it is always a matter of striking the right balance. In Harriet Pat and Her Hat, there were words that were uncommon, but I was determined to introduce them in the story. And these became new words for younger readers to learn or be oriented to, because I wanted them to take something new from their reading experience of my book. So let's use the names in my book as an example. I used the names that were common in their respective regions. For example, Milanovic, Milanovic. So it's a fairly common Eastern European name, and Europeans may know how to say the name exactly like how I am saying it now. But if you go to Asia, this comes as a unique name, and readers from Asian regions may find it a challenge to read. They don't often stumble into these kinds of names, and their orientation to the phonetics of the letters would be different. For example, from that, the letter C, I have always been used to articulating the letter C as k or s, right, for the sounds. But the moment I got here in Serbia, there are different variations for the phonetics for the letter C. And in this case, here you say it as Milanovic, but if I didn't have that kind of orientation, I would have said as Milanovic or Milanovic, something like that. However, and the good thing about it is, if someone is introduced to something, they become curious about it, right? So they start sort of wonder, oh, that's actually different from what I know. This becomes a window of opportunity for curiosity to pave the way for new knowledge. So maybe after being introduced to the name, the reader will start wondering or asking where the name came from, uh, what the people there are like, what language do they use, and so on. So they become curious, they start asking questions, and then they get to learn more about different places and culture. So again, possibilities are endless, and sometimes you just need to open one window. But take pay attention that you always have to strike the right balance. You want to introduce new words, but you don't want to overwhelm the readers also. Okay, next part would be point of view. And point of view refers to the perspective of the writer. You will need to make a decision from the beginning. So this is something that you need to do when you're creating your material, to make decisions at the very beginning, at the earliest stage possible. So what person or time are you using here? Will you be writing in first person, such as using me or I, where it gives the impression that the story is happening to you? Will you be using second person, where you use you or your, where you are placing the reader in the story and he or she will feel involved? Or will you be using a third person, which is he, she, they, where both you and the reader are outside the story, in which you may have more reign in writing the thoughts and feelings of every character in the book, because then you are writing at the point of view of an outsider looking in. So your choice for perspective goes hand in hand with your choice of time, referring to tenses. Will you be narrating the story in present or past? I chose to narrate the story in present tense because it gives that feeling that the readers can still do something, since the events appeared to be current or are still ongoing, as opposed to past tense, which would then give the impression that the events have already happened and does not encourage the readers to make decisions because the decisions has been made for them. Although in a book, in every book, the decisions are already settled. But while the act of reading, the book, it will sort of encourage that kind of reaction. So, but please remember that one choice is not better than the other, but you have to make a decision based on what you want to accomplish and maintain the usage from start to beginning so there is consistency. And then you also need to consider the element of how you are going to write your story. Is it traditional storytelling, full sentences narrated in progressive order? Will you be using repetitions? Because repetitions are actually quite useful for really young readers because you're introducing vocabularies repeatedly, and it helps them in retention. Or will you be using rhymes, which was what I did with my book? I used rhyming because I was fond of rhymes. I love rhymes when I was younger, so I thought I would use something which was interesting to me. Also, when I was teaching before, I observed that my young students enjoyed and were drawn to reading materials that used rhymes. So that was mainly my justification for using rhyming in the manner of writing my story. And then finally, there are characters and setting where most of the fun happen. So you have full artistic rights to create engaging characters and environments. So, but if it's fantasy, then by all means, knock yourself out by creating the most out of the ordinary characters or setting. But my advice when creating your characters is to not just think about the names or how they physically look, but to also think about their backstories. Every character that you will introduce in your book, there has to be a backstory, like their motivation, struggles, strengths, weaknesses, and origins. Bear in mind that all these aspects go hand in hand and help you mold and position each one, that when you put them all together, it all makes sense and the readers can follow. So yeah, so this is, and then on the next slide, um, I wanted to show you a book trailer of Harriet Pat and Her Hat so that you can have an idea of what Harriet Pat and Her Hat is. However, due to technical difficulties, we will still run this video, but after I'm done with the presentation, and it will be done by Mia. Okay, so let me just move along and focus. So, and then later I can show you the book trailers, because the book trailer is actually quite helpful when you're doing promotions. And people are attracted to short videos, and it's good because you sort of give them a taste of what you just did. And I encourage you to actually make book trailers when you've started promotion for your books. But let's go ahead and continue. um, okay. So remember what I said a while back about backstories of the characters that you are going to create. So you think about the motivations, the struggles, strengths, weaknesses, origins, and so forth. These are especially useful when you start your illustrations. So your illustrations should show your story. And here are some questions that can actually help you in this part of the process. So ask yourself again. So you have to always ask yourself a lot of questions during the creative process. What style do you want for your book? Do you have specific styles in mind that you find inspiring? So some will advise that you look at new books so you will have an idea of ongoing trends, or maybe check out other picture books. But you can always play to your own strengths or preference instead of going mainstream. And how do you want your illustrations done? You so think, what material or what tool uh, are you going to use? Do you want charcoal, ink, pen? For example, Shel Silverstein, my favorite, my favorite writer, and he uses only monochromatic illustrations. So that's ink, and it's amazing. I love his work. Or you can also use watercolor, color pencils, crepas, graphic, or digital art. You have so many choices. So if you go for traditional publishing, you don't often have to worry about this part, the illustration part, because the publishing house will make the decisions for you. All you need to think about in these kinds of arrangements is your manuscript. But wouldn't it be great to actually have a say on the illustration part? So, although for some, this might not be a good idea, as writers and illustrators don't often get along in terms of creativity. And this is why publishing houses like to make the writing part independent from the illustrating part. But there are some writers who contribute to illustrating, or there are some who both write and illustrate their books. So, which is what I will be doing for my next book. Because in Harriet, Pat, and Her Hat, I'm getting the book, I wrote and created the draft sketches. And then these sketches were polished by Andre Nervida. So he was the illustrator that I worked with. So I only gave him my draft sketches, and then he polished it. And that's why Harriet, Pat, and Her Hat looks like this now. In fact, if you want to see the story of how she was illustrated, I actually created a video of her in my Facebook page, The Book Den. And if you want to get hold of Andre Nervida, you want to collaborate with him, you can find him and his works in Instagram. If you need his email, I can also share that. So just send me a private message. So, but on my next book, I will be doing the illustrations from start to finish. And here's the thing, when I was comparing the works here and my next book, the artistic direction of my next book is different from Harriet, Pat, and Her Hat. So, but if you are not illustrating and you want to contribute to the output, it really helps to prepare a brief for your illustrator. As you can see there, the brief is like a concept note, and it includes a summary of the story, description of the characters. This is if you are conceptualizing the illustration. If you are not, then you can offer suggestions, but give full rein to the illustrator and not waste his or her time playing with possibilities or changing your mind every now and then, unless you can afford it. So I say this because there are some writers who are not certain about what they want or what their concepts are, and they constantly insist ideas that they are entertaining and then changing their minds. So while the illustrations, and this is while illustrations are being done. So if this happens, you will not only get into each other's nerves, but you will also be wasting time. So in this brief, you also need to include the book orientation and size. So for example, think about how you want the book to look like. Do you want it in, let's say, in portrait or landscape orientation? How big or how small is it? Um, as these give the illustrator an idea on how to set or present the drawing. So you like try to imagine a reading scenario, because then you will have an idea on how you want your book to look. So with Harriet Pat and her hat, I'm looking at my book right now. I originally wanted Harriet Pat and her hat in landscape orientation. So this one is not landscape. This is portrait. And this, I wasn't too keen on the 8.5 by 11 portrait size, which is what it is now. And I did not want it to be taller. I wanted it to be wider, like that. So originally that was what I planned to do. However, after all the illustrations were approved and layout work was being done, there were pages that looked odd or cramped. And so there was a need to readjust and resize the orientation, which eventually led to the book's final look. And I admit it does look better like this. So yes, I guess it was a good idea to actually decide on a longer, a taller orientation rather than a wider one. But again, this is my choice, and you can decide for yourself. And then also in your brief, you can add the work timeline, the number of pages for the illustration, because they would want to know how many sketches or drawings they will need to fulfill, what kind of files you want them saved in, your budget, and rights arrangement. So basically, the brief will show your illustrator what he or she is signing up to and will set expectations. And here are some examples of the illustrations from my book. So illustration 2 and 3 are examples of the original work submitted to me by Andre Nervida. And while illustration number 1 here is an edited and resized illustration. So this particular illustration was altered mainly to accommodate the text, because you also need to make sure in your layout that the illustration does not overwhelm the text, or else you would be in the danger of losing your story. So you also need to make sure that the page is not too busy with so many things happening, because sometimes it can be too much and it discourages the reader from reading. So these are examples of the illustrations that you will find in my book. And then, of course, lastly, during your creative or your creation process, you have the feedback. So review and get feedback from your publishing house, editor, another writer, art director, your friends and family, or other possible readers. It is important to have another set of eyes that can take a look at what you have done, so that, because these insights can be used constructively, and this will go a long way once you start your publishing and promotions. So feedback is necessary, and it's a continuous undertaking. Up until now, in my page, the book then, I always encourage the readers to, I always say there, if you have my book and you've read it, I would be very grateful if you provide me with your insight. So if you can, send me a direct message. And a lot of people would send photos, and then they would also give me their comments about the book, how their children reacted to it. So it's really very helpful in that sense, that it helps you improve your material if you're going to do revisions later, or you're going to do other versions of the same book later on. Or if not, then it also improves your processes, the ones that you actually do in creating your materials. So take it seriously, but do not beat yourself down, because maybe you might receive comments that are not, that you will think are offensive or are too negative. Every comment is positive. Every comment is constructive, because even the ones that we perceive as negative can still help us one way or another. So it's all part of the creation process. And then once you are ready or confident with your material, I think it's really very important that you are certain and sure and proud and confident about your work before you actually pitch it to um, to a literary agent or to a publishing house. So that's why the focus of this presentation is all about the creation of the material. You can then proceed to the next steps, which is getting it published. And that's an entirely new topic. So that is it for my presentation today. And I hope you found the presentation helpful. And if you want to read Harriet Pat and Her Hat, it is available for purchase at Central Books, Shopee, Lazada, and Amazon. And you also have some of my details here. If this is where I post most of the book's videos. And if you want to see my artworks, you can go to my Instagram, which is Den Ramonal Art. Or if you want to see the book Den, which is the page that I maintain for the works that I do, I'm gonna show it to you now. That way you will see how it looks like, and you will see all kinds of comments here because I keep track of, well, I like engaging with my readers. So here, so you can see, oh, sorry, there's some sort of lag in the system. But anyway, you will see in this page, the book, then everything. Like I have entries about, because some readers would actually send their photos. Okay, this is the newest video of a young reader, and she was talking about the book, Harriet Pat and Her Hat. This is a photo sent by another reader, a customer who bought Harriet Pat, and you can see the location where it is now, because I was also curious where the book was going. So it's been to different places in the Philippines, and I'm very happy that it has. So this one's in Cebu. Oh, and you will also see links to my other works here, this is my research works. And here is another customer, and she bought 4 copies of Harriet Pat, and because she bought it for her, because she was a ninang, so for her godchildren. And then this one is from Cebu, and then of course it's interesting to actually see where the book has gone, and to hear how these readers are actually responding or reacting to my book. So now, just so you will have an idea of what the book is all about, and to give you an idea of the story of Harriet Pat, Mayan is going to run a video of the book trailer that I created when I first promoted the book. So I'm going to stop sharing now my screen. Okay, Mayan, back to you.
There's a girl who has a one-of-a-kind hat, and townsfolk call her Hattie Harriet Pat. Everyone waits for Harriet Pat to come by, for every townsfolk believe that her hat answers every cry. Off she goes to help them hither and yon. Day in, day out, her hours have gone. This cannot go on, she said one night. This has to change by hook or by bite. What will Harriet Pat do? Harriet Pat and Her Hat, a new rhyming picture book from Danielle Ceeline Ramonal. Illustrations by Andre Nervita.
Amazing. That's a lot of work, huh?
Yes, it's a lot of work, but it really helps a lot if you know all these things from the very beginning. Because I didn't have any idea how to go about it. I wanted to have a book. I wanted it published. Because I remember the idea coming to me when I was teaching kindergarten, and back then I was thinking, I was doing a reading aloud session with my class, and I was thinking, oh, I wish that the colors were more vibrant. I wish that text was bigger, so it will be easier for me to read, and also the children can, see the text. And then, of course, a bit bigger, the bigger the book, the better for kids, because they can see it.
That's
They
right.
can see it from afar. And so these were some of the things I would always say, sana, ganito, sana, ganyan. I would always say that, but then, okay, now let's do my sana. So I applied all that, all my questions in there, and now I have this. So this is Harriet Pat and her hat, and I wanted to show you guys. Um, okay, because my next, I don't know if it's even possible to do this here, because the artistic direction of my next book is really very different from Harriet Pat and her hat. And this is what I was talking about ensuring what you want for the style that you want for your. So just imagine this.
Mhm.
Yeah. So that's Harriet Pat and her hat. And the ones that I'm working on now, because I'm the one doing the illustration for the second one, it will look like this.
Oh, nice.
I don't know, is it
Yeah,
clear?
I can see it. Yeah.
So it's different, and it's something that I'm really working on, and it's very slow. The process is slow, but it should be something that is close to your heart.
That's right.
That's my say on it.
So, how do you feel that finally your book
I'm
has been
very
released?
happy.
Yeah.
Yes, I was very happy because I remembered, when COVID, when the pandemic happened, I kept thinking about it. Okay, I've been wanting to do this for 9 years now, because now it's 2021, so it's
Mhm.
10, but it happened in 9 years. So I said, it's been 9 years now. I have to do something about it. And I had all the time in the world, because now projects had been canceled. I couldn't do field work. So I had time in my hands. And I said, okay, let's go ahead and do my picture book project. And I did, and I was very happy. And as a new author, I also was aware that it's very difficult to tap the market. And people don't know you, people don't know what you're talking about, what your style is. You are yet to sort of establish yourself. So my expectations were low in terms of sales, or for people to actually support the project. I just wanted it out. So
Mhm.
so I said to myself, I would really be very happy if 10 people would buy my book. That
But
was
it's
how
more than
low my
10. Yeah.
expectation. Yeah, now it's more than 10, and I was so happy, and it has reached people in the United States, the
Wow.
UK,
That's great.
Canada, Denmark, Sweden, sorry, Sweden. And now we are reprinting here in Serbia.
Nice.
So because most of them want, hey, can you? I would like to have a copy of your book, but I'd like it signed. And this is something that I wasn't able to do in with my book, which was released in the Philippines
Mm.
with Central Books. So what I did then, because I couldn't sign the book, I created this personal sticker note
Ah,
that anyone who bought from my distributor then could just put that note in the
yeah.
book, and it's proof that it's first print, and it's one of the first run for Harriet Pat and her hat. And now we're also working on translating it to Bisaya. So the title is going to be Harriet Pat still, because I'm maintaining the name.
Yeah.
Ug
And
ang iyang kalo.
yeah.
So
Ug ang
yeah.
kanyang kalo. Yeah, that's cute,
And
ah.
in Tagalog, and kanyang sombrero. But
Sombrero.
then it's Bisaya. It's a bit tricky because Bisaya has many variations, Cebuano.
Correct. Correct.
So yeah.
I actually read a book, and when you give that
Ah,
link,
you did?
yeah, when you give that link, I
Okay.
forward it to my nephew and my comares, comares
Okay,
sons.
okay.
I told them, oh, you need to download this while it's free. Sabi ko sa kanila. And then they said that, okay, we'll try. Um, Kasi while you are showing your illustration about how you created the book and most of the technical ways, can you tell us who are your inspiration on writing the book? Kasi you mentioned back in your community, who are those people who inspired you to write your book?
ah, um, Inspired by their story, actually, because Okay, the book is dedicated to my dad. So you can see in the first page of my book, uh, you will see it says for Doc Danny.
Mm.
So it was for him, and I feel like he was the biggest Harriet Pat I know.
Wow.
So yeah, so and I know a lot of Harriet Pats. So there are also people who bought the book and said, I feel like I'm a Harriet Pat, so they could relate to it. And because these are actual people, pattern after actual people and real events.
Mhm.
So I wanted the stories heard. And I wanted people and I wanted the lesson behind it to be shared to young readers because of the value. Because
Mm.
I wanted to, I feel like these kinds of themes should be introduced to children because sometimes we are scared to tackle these kinds of things, no, because they're too big or too heavy for kids. But I feel like sometimes we underestimate the perceptiveness and the capacity of children to understand these kinds of topics. And that's why in my next book is even heavier because it talks about um, fighting depression and overcoming challenges.
Mhm.
So that's the main theme of the next book. And but the good thing about writing it in such a way that how it appears in a children's book is it's the child's lens, so it's not that heavy in that sense, and also it's more relatable
Mhm.
and lighter.
Actually, I like the rhymes, no? Kasi it's
Yeah,
very
yeah.
poetic. It's very poetic.
Uh-huh.
More on, I forgot the words, pero talagang ano siya eh, very poetic. And tapos may rhyme siya. So I so like it. Eh, gusto ko nga siyang lagyan ng sounds eh, or music, while I read it,
Hmm.
I remember,
Actually, I was told if I was asked about an audiobook. So I
yeah,
said, no, it's not yet available. Maybe later, but not right now. It's not yet
correct.
available.
That's right. So, um, Roji, do you have any questions? You like to ask some questions? No? Okay, another question. What are the challenges that you face during, before, and at this present?
um, I guess during when you say during when I was creating the book,
Yeah, during.
okay. Well, like what I said, it's been 9 years, and I wasn't certain. I haven't made any decisions when it comes to the elements of the book. All I know is I have this big idea, and this is what I want, and but I couldn't, you know how it is when you have an idea, you have to know how to implement it. This is me talking like so you have to convert your idea into action, into so that when it be, when it's doable, then it's possible to make it happen, to make it into something tangible. And that was the problem with me. And also I was, well, I admitted it already. I was just scared. Fear. I was really scared of how people will react to the book.
Mm-hmm.
I was scared of how they will perceive the book, or would they like it? Would they not like it? Will they hate? I had all these questions and doubts in my head that eventually I made so many excuses. So I don't have time to do this, or I'm not, or it's taking too much of my time. I have other things to do, So at one point, you just have to sit down and get things done, and just confront your fears, because I had to set those aside before I actually started working uh, on completing the book,
Mm-hmm.
because those fears were the reason why I wasn't doing anything. Also.
I see. That's nice, no? Kasi after when this pandemic came, there's a lot of because most of us are on a lockdown, and maraming
Mm-hmm.
nag-evolve, like doing some YouTube channel,
Mm-hmm.
writing a blog. Some are actually doing some cooking, planting, ang daming mga skills or talents na lumabas, even writing an e-books or writing a books. So for you actually started it long time ago, and ito na yung time, the right time for you to release it.
Yeah.
Congratulations
Yes.
after
And it was
9 years.
thank you. And it was scary because people said, "Oh, it's not the right time to promote a book or to release a book. 2020 is not the perfect time. You don't get to run events." And it's true because events would really help a lot in terms of promoting your work, marketing.
Mhm.
But if I don't do it now, it's going to be 10 years
Yeah.
next. And then when am I going to do it if I don't do it now? When I have time in my hands anyway. And then also you can use other resources in terms of promoting your work. So now I'm really using extensively social media.
Mhm.
So that's where I've been telling people, we've been informing people about the internet, about this book, and I haven't done any events yet, and I'm planning to do it once all this eases up. Then we'll run like a reading event, a book signing, uh, a formal launch because
Wow.
I didn't really have an
Yeah.
actual
You
launch.
haven't.
So I'm still, yeah, I'm excited for those two, but I understand that it can't happen at the moment.
Mhm, mhm. All right. Okay, so thank you for answering most of my questions. While I'm checking, there's no question from our Facebook viewers, but for those who don't know about World Pulse Philippines, let me share to you the milestone of World Pulse Philippines. It's gonna be a short one. Before we end our webinar, let me share my presentation. All right. Okay, so I'd like to congratulate World Pulse Philippines because we celebrated our first year anniversary, and we'd like to thank and congratulate and celebrate, and with the virtual hugs and balloons and cakes, we thank you everyone for trusting us with your knowledge, with your wisdom to World Pulse Philippines. And this is our milestone. I'd like to share it to you. So we created Whirlpool's Philippines Facebook group that was last November 21, 2019. And then we have launched Whirlpool's Philippines online. We launched it together with the digital ambassadors last February 2. And then we had the meet and greet online. And then we had a meet-up sa Kapihan, sa Cubao, General Santos, Cebu City, and Tacloban. This is in preparation for the International Women's Month. Unfortunately, yung meet-up sa Tacloban, we weren't able to push through because of the lockdown that was started March 16, 2020. Yun yung start ng lockdown sa Philippines. But some of the meet-up were able to push through. And then last March 9, we have our first webinar at from last March 9 until this month of January. We already have 21 webinars, meaning 21 speakers who actually share their knowledge, share their advocacy, their expertise to World Pulse Philippines. And recently, last November 21, we celebrated first year anniversary, which we had a contest about Post Your Story. And we are very grateful and delighted. And we thank you for those who subscribed to Whirlpool's platform, active or non-active, and they are 84. Isn't that amazing? And then presently, right now, there are 241 members, 400 likes, 485 followers, and there will be 7 guest speakers coming, and there will be more. So we'd like to thank everyone who trusted us with this, and this is the milestone of World Pulse Philippines. Wala kami dito kung wala kayo, of course. That's why we are so grateful, and we thank everyone who join us, who continue to share their stories on World Pulse platform. And of course, we thank you, Ma'am Den, for allowing us to know about her book and the illustration, yung mga challenges niya, sino yung kanyang inspiration. Thank you, Ma'am Den. And for those who would like to connect with Mom Den, you may visit her Facebook. A while ago, um, she presented it to you. Yung kanyang Facebook, pwede niyo siyang i-search at The Book Den for Children and Adults. Again, at The Book Den for Children and Adults. Yan, pwede niyo siyang hanapin sa Facebook, or you can type The Book Den. Yan. So this is mainly houses for Filipino dance anthropologists. Yan. Adventures, pen trails, and stories. Yun yung kanyang description sa kanyang Facebook. You will find features and posts about her works, at saka yung kanyang mga interesting quips and shares ng kanyang mga others who inspire her. Yan. So visit nyo po yung Facebook page ni Ma'am Den. And for those who would like to watch the recorded video, you may visit Whirlpool's Philippines page. So you can also join our Facebook group for updates and stories at Whirlpool's Philippines. And of course, since this is a recorded webinar, pwede nyo siyang panoorin back, or we will also going to share this on YouTube. Ayan. For those who don't know about World Pulse, okay, so World Pulse is a safe, secure, and supportive place on the internet for women. If you have stories, you can share your stories on World Pulse platform, and we will be there encouraging you and reading your stories. Merong stories na pinost si Ma'am Den sa World Pulse. Uh, I encourage you to visit World Pulse platform kasi ang ganda po nung stories na shinare niya. Nakaka-amaze, especially to know about, the title is Mananayaw. Makikita ninyo kung how culturally talaga si Ma'am Den, and very lovingly sa kanyang roots, which is from Mindanao. So I encourage you. So Ma'am Den, before we end, please invite our viewers, lastly, where they can contact you, how they can collaborate with you.
Okay. Thank you, man, for those generous information about my works and about me also. But again, like what I said in the presentation, if you would like to read Harriet Pat and her hat, she is available for purchase. It is available for purchase at Central Books, Lazada, and Amazon. So hardcovers are available via Central Books, Shopee and Lazada, and then paperback and ebook available by Amazon. And I will be running another free download during Valentine's Day. So it's going to be a 1 week, free download. So you can download the ebook version of Harriet Pat if you're curious about the book and you would like to know about the book, but not yet ready to buy the paperback copy or the hardcover. You can have the ebook for free. It's going to be downloaded by Amazon also. And then if you want to know updates about the book, about my other works, like mentioned by Mayan, it's going to be available. You can check out the book Den. That's the Facebook page. Or if you want to see my artworks, Instagram, Dan Ramonal Arts. And then all others would be on YouTube. You can, some of my performances are there too. So if you are curious about what I am doing in terms of promoting and educating people about our intangible cultural heritage, about Mindanao, then you can also view those videos there.
Yeah. So Daisy is watching on our Facebook Live. So I'd like to inform Daisy. Hi, Daisy. There will be a free ebook that you can connect through Amazon. Let's wait for that. I encourage talaga. It's nice to read, especially the rhyme. The kids will love it. Ako nga nag-enjoy ako para akong bata nung binabasa ko siya. Especially pag you read it with your kids. It's very mag-i-enjoy ka talaga, especially the rhymes. And the drawings, of course, ang ganda ng pagkakadraw. Thank you so much, Mom Den, and we really appreciate that you give your time to us and to present, and how you actually, successfully release your book, and how you make it, and who's your inspiration, yung motivation mo. And I hope those who are dreaming to have their own books as well, they will get some inspiration from you, and they will also, have the courage to also write starting now, di ba? walang late sa pagsulat ng iyong own books. So, thank you, Ma'am Den.
Yeah.
And also, Rogine, thank you so much for joining us tonight. For those who are watching, are you sure you don't have question, Rogine? Are you okay? Okay. So, yes, thank you so much. And that end our webinar. And we hope to see you next Tuesday. We'll have our guest speaker. He will be talking about disaster prepping. Yan. So for those who'd like to know what are the different kinds of preparation that we need before the disaster comes, so please join us next Tuesday. It's about disaster prepping. Yan. So I hope that we will see you next week. Thank you so much, and we hope that you learn a lot and contact us, send us a message if you have question. We are very happy to connect with you to answer your question. Bye.